Inside the precinct guardroom, the mood was calm as usual. A few officers sat behind their desks, sorting through piles of reports, while the ticking wall clock echoed the stillness of that late afternoon. But suddenly that quiet was broken. Through the front entrance, an elderly couple rushed in, panic etched across their faces. The husband, Mr. Samuel Dawson, frail but standing tall, struggled to catch his breath, his trembling hands grasping for support as though he might collapse. Beside him, his wife, Mrs. Sarah Dawson, could no longer hold back her tears. She sobbed uncontrollably, her steps faltering, as if her body might give way beneath the weight of despair. One of the officers quickly rose and hurried to their side, guiding them to a chair. At that same moment, a sharply dressed detective strode past the hallway. It was Detective Richard Sanders, lead investigator with the county's criminal division, just returning from a meeting with the district attorney. His sharp eyes, trained to read every flicker of human emotion, needed only one glance at the distressed couple to know this was far more than a routine missing person report. Sanders immediately stepped forward, opened the small interrogation room and spoke with steady authority. "Please, sir, ma'am, sit down. Take a breath. Start from the beginning. Tell me exactly what happened." But his calm words only deepened Mrs. Dawson's sobs. She buried her face into her worn shawl, her shoulders trembling violently, her cries filling the room like a heavy weight pressing down. Mr. Dawson, trying to stay composed, could no longer hide his anguish. His voice broke as he pleaded, "Detective, please save my grandson Ryan Parker. He's been missing for 3 days. We are certain it's his stepmother, Rachel Adams, who's behind this." The room froze. His words struck like lightning on a clear day. Sanders narrowed his eyes, lowering his head as fragments of the story began piecing together. He had seen dozens of missing teen cases. Most were runaways over trivial conflicts. But this was different. The grief and conviction in Mr. Dawson's trembling voice, paired with Mrs. Dawson's inconsolable weeping, made the accusation impossible to ignore. Sanders signaled to a junior officer to record every word. Then, meeting Mr. Dawson's gaze, he said, "Please explain clearly. Since when has Ryan been missing, and why are you convinced his stepmother is involved?" Mr. Dawson drew a deep, shuddering breath. With tears streaming, his voice, torn between sorrow and rage, told the story, how their grandson hadn't shown up for school in 3 days. His homeroom teacher, Mrs. Linda Harris, was the first to call them. When they tried reaching Ryan, his phone was turned off. And when they contacted Rachel, her cold response crushed them. She claimed Ryan had stormed off because he wasn't bought a new phone and had run away. "Impossible," Dawson cried, his voice rising, fists tightening against the table. "We raised him since he was little. We know him. Ryan isn't that kind of child. He's respectful, hardworking, and devoted to his studies. He would never abandon his family." Sanders listened intently, his instincts warning him this was no ordinary runaway. Something darker lurked beneath the polished image of Rachel Adams, the woman who now controlled every dollar of her late husband's estate. Outside, heavy rain began pounding against the roof, the echo sounding like nature's cruel reminder. While the storm washed the streets, perhaps somewhere in the shadows, a far greater sin was being hidden beneath wealth and power. Sanders studied the Dawsons' faces. Their wrinkles carried not just years, but the deep scars of heartbreak. Drawing in a steady breath, Sanders spoke with resolve. "All right, Mr. and Mrs. Dawson, we will pursue this. I promise you we'll find Ryan and uncover the truth behind his disappearance." His words broke what little strength Samuel had left. He wept openly while Sarah clung to his hand, desperate for hope. From that moment, Ryan's disappearance was no longer just a family's tragedy. It had become a case that could shake the entire community. 2 officers asked permission to inspect Ryan's bedroom. The space was orderly, the bed neatly tucked, his study desk stacked with books. His laptop sat untouched on the table, charger still connected. On the shelf, rows of Japanese comics lined up perfectly, and on a small side table stood a framed photo of Ryan with his late mother. One officer leaned close to Detective Richard Sanders and whispered, "If he really ran away, teenagers usually grab their laptop or favorite items. But here, everything's intact." Sanders gave a brief nod. The little details only deepened his doubt toward Rachel's version of events. After nearly an hour, Sanders wrapped up the questioning. He rose to his feet, his expression unreadable, and said flatly, "Thank you, ma'am. We'll continue the investigation. For now, please remain at home so we can contact you easily." Rachel flashed a sweet smile, her tone almost light. "Of course, Detective. I'm not going anywhere. I pray Ryan returns soon." Yet as Sanders and his team walked out, he could feel her eyes trailing them. It wasn't the anxious gaze of a grieving parent, it was the calculating look of someone certain she had crafted answers for every suspicion. Out in the yard, Sanders paused for a moment. His team waited silently. Lowering his voice, Sanders ordered, "Starting tonight, set up discreet surveillance on this house. 2 men at a time around the clock. Don't let a single move go unnoticed." One officer hesitated, asking, "Sir, she seems so calm, could she really believe Ryan just left temporarily?" Sanders turned his eyes toward the large house on the hill. From a distance, its white walls glowed, impressive yet cold. Quietly he replied, "No parent stays that calm when their child's been missing 3 days. That isn't acceptance, it's concealment." Their patrol car rumbled down the rocky lane. In the rearview mirror, Sanders caught sight of Rachel still standing on the porch, waving faintly, her smile frozen in place, as if confident her plan was unfolding smoothly. He exhaled heavily. The game, he realized, had only begun. His opponent wasn't just any woman, she was one hiding a dangerous secret behind her polite mask. Night spread over Cademangan. From afar, the Parker family estate loomed, garden lamps flickering against its walls. To villagers, the mansion looked majestic. But to the police, it hid shadows darker than night. 2 plainclothes officers sat on an old motorcycle near the gate, disguised as locals idling on the roadside. In truth, since afternoon, they had been following Rachel's every move under Sanders' orders. On the first day, Rachel kept her routine, shopping at the market, meeting a poultry supplier, watering her flowers. By nightfall, the house lights went dark at 10 p.m. There was no panic, no searching, no restless calling. Everything seemed staged, too controlled. Reading the report, Sanders frowned. If her son really ran away, a mother would be restless, contacting everyone she could. This calmness, it's unsettling. The next morning, Sanders decided to see things himself. Wearing a worn jacket and cap, he walked along the narrow path near the estate. Hidden behind banana trees, he watched Rachel directing workers in the poultry yard. Her steps were firm, her face serene, more like a business owner than a mother in despair. Sanders muttered inwardly, when someone hides a deep secret, sometimes they appear too calm. Later that afternoon, he circled the back of the property. Long rows of chicken coops stretched ahead, the stench of droppings sharp in the air. But his eyes stopped at a building further away, a small cement warehouse with an iron door. Unlike the coops, it was solidly built. From its vents seeped a sharp chemical odor. Approaching casually, Sanders greeted an old worker filling water buckets. "Sir, what's inside that warehouse?" The man glanced quickly, then whispered, "That's the feed grinder room. Always locked, used often. But lately, strange smells keep coming out." The answer only fueled Sanders' suspicion. Thanking the worker, he stepped away, careful not to reveal his interest. In his mind, though, he marked the warehouse as a key location. That night at the temporary post, he sketched a map and circled it boldly, "Back warehouse." "This could be where Rachel hides her secret," he declared. "We don't have grounds to search yet, so wait. But from tonight, watch that building closely." On the third night, Sanders' fears sharpened. Near 11 p.m., his radio crackled. "Detective, the warehouse light just turned on." The officer's voice trembled. Sanders answered immediately, "Keep your distance. Record the time. Don't approach yet." From their position, they saw Rachel enter the warehouse wearing a dark raincoat, though no rain was falling. She locked the iron door tight. Soon, the muffled sound of machinery filled the night, bright flashes spilling from the vents. 30 minutes later, the noise ceased. She switched off the light, secured the door, and walked home calmly, her face flat, almost expressionless. The detailed report landed on Sanders' desk before dawn. He read with his pulse racing, "That warehouse, what is she doing there at night?" Leaning back, he stared at the ceiling. Every sign pointed to one thing. Ryan hadn't left on his own, and the warehouse wasn't for feed alone. The following morning at Ryan's high school, Sanders arrived in plain clothes with 2 officers. The principal, clearly worried, led them to the teacher's lounge. "Ryan's a model student. Respectful, never any trouble. We can't believe he'd run away." Soon, his homeroom teacher, Mrs. Linda Harris, arrived. She explained, since his father passed, he grew quiet. But recently he seemed brighter, often talking about college and the future. "I can't imagine he'd just leave." Her words strengthened Sanders' doubts further. He then spoke with Ryan's closest friends. His best friend, Andrew Sullivan, spoke with conviction, "Sir, I don't believe Ryan ran away. He argued with Mrs. Rachel often, but he had big goals. He once told me, "Wait until I'm 18, then I can choose my own path." Sanders asked if they spoke before Ryan vanished. Yes, the night before. He argued with her about college. He was upset, but later he joked with me. There's no way he disappeared the next day by choice. When asked what Ryan would take if he ever left, Andrew replied instantly, his laptop or comics. But I heard everything's still in his room. That's why I'm sure he didn't run away. That statement carried more weight than any evidence so far. Later, a girl named Natalie Brooks, hesitant at first, revealed something crucial. She showed Sanders a message Ryan sent her the night before he vanished. "Pray I stay strong. If something happens tomorrow, tell my grandparents I love them." The room grew still. The words read like a farewell. The message was sent around 8 p.m., the same time his phone last pinged near. Further digging confirmed Ryan was last seen on CCTV walking home at 9 p.m. His phone went dead an hour later. A final cloud-synced memo appeared before the shutdown. "I feel trapped. If something happens to me, find the answer in this house." Surveillance continued. Rachel's composure, her secret meetings with Mr. Stephen Collins, a well-known inheritance lawyer, and her late-night trips to the warehouse only sharpened suspicions. Villagers whispered about her strange indifference. To Sanders, the pieces now formed a chilling picture, but without hard proof, his hands were tied. On the 8th day, a breakthrough came. Jonathan Bennett, a former longtime worker at the Parker household, finally came forward. Shaking but resolute, he confessed, "That night, around 11, I saw the warehouse lights. Through the window, I clearly saw Mrs. Rachel inside. She wore a plastic raincoat, gloves on her hands. The grinder roared. She poured water and scrubbed it clean, her face tight with fear. I know what I saw. I'd worked there for years. I panicked and ran. She fired me days later, maybe to silence me." The room went silent. Sanders knew instantly, another piece of the puzzle had locked into place. On the investigation board, Rachel's photo, the name of attorney Mr. Stephen Collins, and the note "Back Warehouse" were already pinned. Now a new card was added, "Witness, Mr. Bennett." Detective Richard Sanders turned to his team, his voice steady. "This is the breakthrough we've been waiting for. A direct eyewitness account that lines up with everything we've suspected. The night Ryan vanished, Rachel was inside the warehouse running the big machine, scrubbing something down, and the very next day she fired the only worker who saw her." Daniel Wright from the Cyber Division added firmly. "With this testimony, we have solid grounds to demand a search warrant." Sanders nodded with conviction. "Exactly. No more waiting, we move forward." He glanced toward Jonathan Bennett. "Your courage matters. Don't worry, we'll protect you. Your words could be the key to uncovering the truth." Tears welled in Bennett's eyes. His voice cracked. "Ryan was a good boy, sir. Every morning he greeted me kindly. I can't stand the thought of him vanishing without a trace." Sanders placed a hand on his shoulder. "Trust me, the truth is close. We won't let this disappear into silence." That afternoon, Sanders compiled the full case file. Digital data, schoolmate statements, Rachel's cold and evasive behavior, her quiet meetings with the lawyer, strange activity at the warehouse, and now the testimony of the former employee. When the folder was complete, he glanced at the wall clock. Outside, dusk painted the sky red while a drizzle fell steadily. Closing the thick folder with resolve, he murmured, "Tomorrow we request the search warrant. Once that warehouse is opened, the secrets will no longer be buried." The team nodded in agreement. A major step lay ahead. That night, Sanders once again read Ryan's short note on the laptop screen. Only this time he didn't whisper the words, he carried their meaning silently in his chest. "Rest easy, son," he whispered instead. "We're closer than ever. The truth will soon find its way to light." Morning in Blitar still smelled of damp soil from the night's rain. Inside the Cademangan police office, Detective Sanders sat sternly at his desk. Before him lay the thick folder representing more than a week's relentless work. Witness testimonies, cyber evidence, the timeline of Ryan's disappearance, and most importantly Bennett's testimony, the last piece of the puzzle. Sanders closed the folder slowly, then addressed his team with a resolute voice. "Today we act. The evidence is sufficient. We're filing for the warrant." By midday, Sanders entered the Blitar District Attorney's office. The air inside was cold and heavy, only the ticking clock breaking the silence. Handing over the thick case file to a senior prosecutor, Sanders carefully explained each reason why the Dawson property must be searched immediately. The prosecutor read silently, pausing for a long time at Bennett's testimony regarding the back warehouse. Finally, he closed the file and looked directly at Sanders. "The case is clear. The evidence is strong. By the law, I authorize this search. With a firm signature and a red seal, the warrant became official. Sanders accepted the document with a trembling hand. This wasn't just paper, it was the key to truth. That afternoon, the police yard roared with vehicles being prepared. Investigators suited up with tactical gear, while the forensic team arranged their specialized kits. Sanders stood tall before them. Our mission tonight: search Rachel Adams' residence. This isn't just about evidence, it's about finding what happened to a missing boy. Be thorough. One detail could change everything. Ready, Commander, the team responded in unison. The convoy rolled out at dusk. Engines rumbled through the quiet village roads. Villagers peeked from windows, curiosity written on their faces. The Dawson mansion loomed, grand yet cold, as the vehicles pulled into the yard. On the veranda, Rachel appeared in a simple house dress, startled by the sudden arrival of dozens of officers. Quickly, she forced a thin smile. Sanders stepped forward, holding up the warrant. Mrs. Rachel Adams, this is an official search order from the prosecutor's office. We will inspect your house and every building on the property. Her face paled, though she tried to remain composed. Of course, sir. My home is open. I've nothing to hide, she replied politely, but Sanders caught the flicker of unease beneath her faint smile. The search began: living room, bedrooms, kitchen, storage. Everything was spotless. Too spotless. Notes were taken, photographs snapped, yet nothing stood out. Until they reached the back. In one corner stood a weathered warehouse with a locked iron door. Sanders turned to Rachel. Please open this warehouse. She hesitated, then pulled a key from her skirt pocket. It's just feed storage for the chickens. Nothing important, she said softly. The iron door creaked open. Damp air and a sharp odor rushed out. The floor glistened as if it had just been scrubbed. The forensic team stepped in with gloves and masks, switching on UV lamps. Purple light revealed faint stains along the walls, in the corners, even on the ceiling near the grinding machine. Sir, fluorescence detected in several spots. Possible biological traces, a technician reported. Collect and document everything, Sanders ordered sharply. The grinder looked far too clean for daily use. When dismantled, a dark sticky stain was found hidden deep inside. Swabs were sealed in tubes. Then, opening the drainage pipe, a sickening stench hit. Trapped in the grate were strands of black hair. Silence filled the warehouse. Everyone knew what this meant. Sanders drew a long breath. That's enough. Seal this warehouse. Rachel stood frozen in the doorway, pale, trembling, clutching her bag. That's just rotten feed residue. You're mistaken, she tried to argue. Sanders stared hard at her. You can explain that at the station. Madam, you're coming with us. Two female officers escorted her firmly but respectfully. Outside, villagers had gathered, whispering as Rachel was led away. Some shook their heads, others murmured. At last, the truth is coming out. Sanders stood under the drizzle, watching the mansion now sealed with yellow tape. He knew this was just the beginning. The evidence was here, but the full truth was yet to be uncovered. Clenching his fist, he whispered, "The truth won't stay hidden much longer." Only one question lingered: what truly happened that night? Rachel lowered her head, her fingers brushing the edge of the table. For a long moment she stayed silent. Finally, her hoarse voice broke the air. I never meant for him to die." The room went still. Investigators exchanged glances but waited patiently. Detective Richard Sanders leaned forward slightly, giving her room to speak. Rachel drew in a long breath. "That night we fought again. Ryan said he wanted to study abroad. I was furious. I thought he only wanted to escape me, to run from this house." His words cut deep. He shouted that he'd rather live on the streets than with me. His eyes filled with tears. He compared me to his late mother, as if I could never measure up. I lost control. I struck him. He fell, hit his head on the table, and blood came out. I panicked. I thought he had just fainted, but he never woke up. Her voice cracked. She clutched the sleeve of her blouse, her body stiff, tears dripping onto the table. I was terrified. If anyone found out, I'd lose everything. My home, my business, my reputation. I just wanted to survive. Sanders gave her time to let the sobs settle, then spoke, calm yet firm. Panic can be understood. But what cannot be excused is what followed. You scrubbed that warehouse, erased the stains, and destroyed the traces. That wasn't panic. That was deliberate. Why take that path? Rachel stared blankly at the wall, her voice faint. Because once Ryan turned 18, everything would belong to him. I would have nothing. and when he said he hated me, it felt like my life was already over. I just wanted to hold on. The investigators wrote quickly. Though incomplete, her words were already a confession. Rachel admitted to the fight, the strike, and her fear of losing her wealth. Sanders' tone grew heavier. Madam, survival doesn't mean destroying another life. Ryan was your son, someone you were supposed to protect. Truth cannot be divided. Sooner or later, it surfaces. Rachel covered her face with her hands. Her sobs had no sound now, only her shoulders trembling. She said no more. The interrogation stretched nearly 2 hours. 1 hour 5 minutes and 26 seconds. Each time Sanders mentioned the warehouse or the machine, Rachel avoided answering. I can't bear to remember, she repeated over and over. But her refusal only deepened their conviction. She was hiding the darkest part. Finally, Sanders closed the folder. That's enough for today. Turning to his team, he instructed. Tomorrow we bring in the worker witness. Let Rachel hear the voice of someone who saw her. Her defense is already weak. One more push and it will collapse. Rachel was let out, not daring to look back. The investigators looked at Sanders with renewed spirit. They knew the truth was just one step away. The awaited day arrived. As planned, the team brought in the longtime worker, Mr. William Turner, a middle-aged man. He sat only a few meters from Rachel. When their eyes met, she quickly looked down, her face pale. Sanders began firmly. Mrs. Rachel, yesterday you admitted to striking Ryan. But Mr. Turner saw more. Near midnight you were in the warehouse. You turned on the machine. You wore a raincoat. You were scrubbing something. How do you explain that? Rachel grew restless, her breathing uneven. She shook her head, but Sanders pressed on. Forensic evidence is clear. We have a witness. There is no other path but truth. The silence grew heavy. Mr. Turner looked at Rachel with deep disappointment, like a father staring at a lost child. Finally, Rachel closed her eyes, her broken voice escaping. That night, after I struck Ryan, he hit his head. I tried to wake him, but he didn't move. His body was cold. I realized he was gone. She gripped the edge of her chair. I was terrified. I saw prison, saw everyone accusing me. I thought my life was over. So I dragged him to the warehouse. My only thought was, if there was no trace, no one could prove it. I switched on the machine, tried to erase it all. Then I scrubbed the floor with water and detergent, stacked new feed sacks, and got rid of anything that could expose me. I believed if nothing remained, it would be as though it never happened. Her tears streamed freely, her voice hoarse but steady. I was wrong. It was fear of losing my home, my business, my name. Every time I looked at Ryan, I felt he was a threat to everything I had. That night, I lost control. Sanders leaned forward, sharp but composed. Madam Rachel, this wasn't panic. You didn't just strike him. You planned what followed, scrubbing, covering, crafting a lie that Ryan had run away. That was not impulse. That was a choice. Rachel stayed silent for a long moment, then nodded slowly. Yes, I chose that path. And now it's too late. The room was still. Investigators wrote swiftly. Mr. Turner lowered his head in sorrow. Sanders exhaled deeply, then signaled his team. Everyone knew this was the final piece. Forensic proof, eyewitness account, and now her confession. The puzzle was complete. Rachel stood weakly as she was escorted out. She did not resist nor deny. Her face was drained, her eyes empty, fixed on the floor as though nothing around her mattered anymore. Sanders turned to his team. Our work isn't finished. We compile the case, present everything in court. Let justice speak. What matters is the truth has surfaced. The team nodded. Though weighed down by sorrow, they knew justice now had a foundation. 1 hour 10 minutes and 11 seconds. Months later, after Rachel Adams' full confession, the case reached the Blitar District Court. The courtroom was packed with citizens, journalists, and Ryan's relatives. Everyone waiting for the conclusion of the tragedy that had haunted Cademangan village. Rachel entered in gray prison clothes. She no longer resembled the elegant woman of a grand house. Now she appeared drained, her eyes hollow, her steps heavy. No smile, no tears, only silence as if resigned to fate. The judge opened the trial firmly. The prosecutor laid out the chronology, the quarrel, the forensic proof, the witness accounts, and Rachel's confession. Everything was presented with clarity, impossible to refute.
We know you were there.
Rachel listened without much reaction. Sometimes her head lowered,
already told you,
sometimes her eyes glistened, but she never denied again. When asked to speak, she whispered, I regret it, but my regret will never bring Ryan back. After the hearings, the judge pronounced the verdict. With a heavy voice, he declared Rachel Adams guilty of murder and of destroying evidence. The sentence, life imprisonment. The courtroom fell silent. No cheers, no clapping, only long heavy sighs. In the gallery, Mr. Samuel Dawson and Mrs. Sarah Dawson sat hand in hand, tears streaming. It was not joy, only grief. The loss of their grandson could never be healed. But at least truth had prevailed and justice was given. Afterward, Mr. Samuel told reporters with a trembling voice, "We are old. We wish for one thing, that no family ever suffers as we have. May wealth never blind the human heart." His words moved many. Beneath the case, people saw how fear and greed could twist the human soul. A woman once seen as gentle could become cruel, only to hold on to status and wealth. For Detective Sanders and his team, the case carried a clear lesson: no crime is perfect. However clever the perpetrator, truth always finds its way, through fragments of evidence, a witness's memory, or a confession crushed by guilt. Weeks after the verdict, the Dawson family's grand house was sold. Mr. Samuel and Mrs. Sarah chose to live simply on the city's edge. Part of the money went to an orphanage in memory of the grandson who never reached his dreams. The story of Rachel Adams and Ryan Parker became a somber reminder for the people of Blitar, how fear and greed can drag a person into unthinkable darkness. And from this tragedy came a lasting message: wealth may vanish, but love and truth remain eternal. Friends, this story reminds us, fear and greed can blind the heart, even to the point of harming the ones we should protect most. In life, riches can bring comfort, but they cannot buy peace of mind. Hatred and envy only destroy, while love and honesty are the legacies that endure. If you have children or grandchildren, listen to them, give them your time. A small act of care might save their future. And when problems arise within family, face them with patience and wisdom, not with anger that only leaves regret. May this story inspire us to value family, protect bonds with sincerity, and turn the suffering of others into a lesson for life. If this story touched you, please share your thoughts in the comments, press the like button and subscribe so we can continue sharing meaningful stories together.